Today on CityCast Philly, in some parts of the city, there's trees planted in front of every house. And in other parts of the city, there's none, only concrete. I'm speaking with a local public health expert about Philly's plan to plant more trees, which they say could improve residents' health. It's Wednesday, October 25th. I'm Trinina Marie, and here's what Philly's talking about. Christine Ganella, you're the Managing Director of Strategy Development at the Public Health Management Corporation, which is a nonprofit that focuses on public health. How do trees impact our lives as we live in the city?
Sure. Trees are a really vital component of our public health. They help reduce asthma rates. They help increase livability. There's evidence to show that trees and tree canopies will also help reduce gun violence. And so when we think about public health and the role that public health plays in our communities, trees are a really important component of that.
Okay, so Philly recently got a $12 million grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to be allocated for this new plan called the Philly Tree Plan. Can you tell us a little bit about what this money is for and how you're looking to work with the city?
Sure. So back in May, we applied with partners from across Philadelphia, including the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, City Parks and Rec, Fairmount Park Conservancy, PowerCorp PHL, and the School District of Philadelphia and the Sustainable Business Network of Greater Philadelphia to this USDA grant. We had originally applied for a $50 million grant for 5 years. We were awarded $12 million and are really thrilled to have those funds to be able to implement a component of the Philly Tree Plan. The Philly Tree Plan was published by the city of Philadelphia in February of 2023, and it's the city's first ever strategic plan for equitable growth and care of the city's urban forest. So it's centered around a 10-year roadmap and includes recommendations in 8 core areas to build a more equitable and healthy tree canopy. So a tree canopy is the leaves and branches and the things that you see above ground that is providing sort of the shade in your neighborhood. So this $12 million is a component of that larger Philly Tree Plan that will look at increasing the tree canopy around some of our more under-resourced areas across Philadelphia.
Do we know specific zip codes where we need to plant more trees?
So we have a good sense of where we need to increase the tree canopy. Also, as we know that there are trees that need caring, maybe some of those trees need to be removed, more replanting in those areas. And so as part of that comprehensive Philly Tree Plan, they've identified where some of our priority areas are. I would say as a part of this specific award, what we're needing to do, as I mentioned, we had applied for $50 million. We were granted $12 million. So we're really needing to do some rescoping and rebudgeting and reprioritization of how we're going to really use this $12 million to be as impactful as we can be.
Do we know why the city needed a tree plan?
There was a study done, and that between 2008 and 2018, the city lost 6% of its total tree canopy. So that's equal to 1,000 football fields worth of trees. So you can imagine that with the loss of those trees, that impacts our community's health. And we see that in our most under-resourced areas, that is where we have a minimal tree canopy, if not no tree canopy at all, right? So making sure that there's equitable access to trees across our communities. Again, that impacts our climate. It lowers the heat of our city. We know that heat in communities is also linked to violence. And so this is, I think, the thread of where public health is infused into this work. We often think of public health, and I think where public health sort of has come to the surface more recently is around COVID, right? And people think about public health and COVID and infectious disease. And unfortunately, that's sort of the lens that people see public health. But public health oftentimes is always in the background of the work that we do, right? So we think about where public health makes that tie of looking at livability, how's your environment impacting your health? And so I think in the Philly Tree Plan, and with this particular funding, the thread of health in sort of the tree planting efforts is recognizing how trees can impact the health of our communities, and really seeing this as such a valuable asset for our communities, in particular our communities that are under-resourced.
So, Christine, you just talked about how trees are important to our public health. I'm wondering how the Public Health Management Corporation assesses health outcomes. I really want to know what would need to be seen for your office to say, okay, this plan was a success.
So a success would definitely be seeing this increase in the tree canopy across Philadelphia, right? Another success is looking at, can we start to really dig into evaluating how those trees have impacted our communities? Looking at, can we look at health outcomes related to, in particular, like the areas where we've seen this increase in the tree canopy? And can we tie health outcomes to that? So that would be sort of above and beyond what the Philly Tree Plan is doing, but really encouraging other partners who might be interested in exploring this and tying this really to health outcomes. There are studies that demonstrate that 80% of your health is actually not related to healthcare. 80% of your health is related to social determinants of health, those being where you live, your education level, your access to transportation. And so when we think if 80% of what impacts your health is not actually related to healthcare, that's where we need to make the connection of where then how we understand our communities and how we understand sort of the livability of our communities and how they impact our health and our well-being. And I think, again, this is what's so powerful for PHMC being involved in this larger Philly Tree Plan effort is we have the ability to be able to infuse in the public health lens into this work and helping to make the connection to improving and growing the tree canopy in Philadelphia and how that will impact the health of our communities. And then there's plenty of opportunity for our partners to get involved, all of our stakeholders in this work to get involved to help us build out the other components of the Philly Tree Plan that weren't able to be funded under this award.
And what are those?
So some of those are looking at like additional, building out additional tree canopies. And one of the things that we're in discussion right now is looking at how do we prioritize the work, right? So as you can imagine, a $50 million grant and a $12 million grant, that scope looks very different, right? So really trying to understand through a number of stakeholders, how do we maximize the use of this money? So I think, the workforce development piece, could that be a piece that we could look for additional supports somewhere else, right? And how we get, how can this be a trajectory for job opportunities, right? So there's different components and focus areas of the Philly Tree Plan that we're really looking at, not tabling, but that are maybe made better packaged to then be looking for support elsewhere.
How can we as Philadelphians protect the trees that are already planted in our neighborhoods?
That's a great question. It's easy to be critical of what's happening in our communities, but we all need to see ourselves as being stewards of our health and our well-being, including the cultivation of our tree canopy. So I think one sort of tangible way to do that is if you have a tree outside of your home that maybe it needs pruning, maybe it's dying, and so really looking at how you can, in your space, be cultivating this. There's plenty of other volunteer opportunities also to support tree planting, to get involved with any number of our organizations that are involved with the Philly Tree Plan. Ask questions, right? See how this Philly Tree Plan is going to impact your neighborhood. Advocate for an increased tree canopy in your community. We know that advocating for your needs is one of the most impactful ways to get things done in your community. Know who your partners are. Know who your elected officials are. Put this out in front of your elected officials so they can speak up and really get attention to the community that you're representing.
Christine Ganella, Managing Director of Strategy Development at the Public Health Management Corporation. Thank you so much for joining me on CityCast Philly.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have more information about Philly's tree plan in our show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode about Philly's tree plan, tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.